Welcome to Metaphysical Concepts. We have a special guest tonight, and her name is Harmony Quaintance. Is
Yes,
that it, Harmony?
that's right.
Okay. There we go. Now, Harmony, where are you from?
I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay. And your parents are from Cincinnati, Ohio?
My mom's from Nashville, and my dad's from
Nashville. Does
Cleveland.
she sing or play guitar or anything like that? Or?
She's a lovely singer.
Well, I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Okay. Does she ever sing professionally?
No, she sings for a community choir, but not professionally.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what brought you to Missoula?
It was mostly an intuitive move.
Okay.
I moved out of town, out of Cincinnati before.
Sure.
And I felt that it was about time, and I kind of asked my guides, where to, and...
Okay, can we stop right there just for a second? You asked your guides. Can you explain that a little bit? Do they talk to you in feelings? They talk to you audibly? Do you get signs, symbols? What happens when you say you talk to your guides?
It's mostly feeling.
Okay.
I do get some audio stuff, like they quite audibly said Missoula, Montana.
Isn't
So
that something? Wow.
yeah, so I do get some.
What kind of situation were you in when they said Missoula, Montana? Were you just asleep, or driving down the street, or?
No, I was actually sitting in my bedroom at the time.
Okay.
And I had been sort of meditating, doing some prayer, some thinking, and I just asked, I feel like it's time to go. Where
Did you hear that it was a soft voice, or like Missoula, Montana? What exactly was it?
It was just said, I said where to, and they said Montana, and it just like someone was speaking to me, and
That's amazing. It's like a regular voice then?
yeah.
Okay, well, what's interesting too, I know I read your hands, and you have the hands of a master, so we're kind of dipping into that a little bit because you're, let's say, in communication. Now, has there been times when these voices have talked to you about wisdom, what you should do, let's say, with a lifestyle, or how you should progress, let's say, with evolution or anything like that? What do they talk about?
I can't say that the communication is strong and steady,
Okay.
because I have my own doubts. So it normally comes in the form of, there's a particular book I'm looking for, and I feel that I should go to this bookstore, or today's the day to go to the library, or that sort of thing.
You go directly to the book and pick it out of the shelf, that kind of thing?
Or I'll know, what section to go to depending on how I'm feeling, and there's the book that I need for the time, yeah.
Okay, and then what kind of books do you like to read?
For my enjoyment, I read fiction.
Okay.
Fiction, romance.
Romance now? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I have to admit it.
Okay, honest.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I read self-help books, I read spiritual books.
Wow.
And that's for my study.
Okay, now when you read spiritual books, what kind of spiritual books do you read? Because we're going to try and tap that a little bit today. We're not going to put you under hypnosis, but we're kind of trying to tap some of your qualities and the things that you can do that are your talents, okay?
Okay.
Now, one of your talents, of course, is Reiki, okay? Now, in Reiki, there's a definition to that, and what would be your definition to Reiki?
My definition of Reiki would be a system of using energy to bring about change in body, mind, and spirit.
Okay. Now, when you pass over your hands over somebody, and we tried this, I guess a couple of days ago, that you seem to have a lot of heat coming out of your hands. Can you explain that in Reiki, and what does it do? You will it to heal somebody, relax a muscle, or heal a disease, or anything like that? What is the definition how these things work in Reiki?
With Reiki, you don't use your will. You're pretty much just the conduit for the energy.
Okay.
So with the system of Reiki, there are symbols that you use to turn the energy on, off, increase it, that sort of thing.
So you say symbols or?
Symbols.
Okay, what kind of symbols would turn it on, for instance?
There's, depending on what level you are, there are different symbols to use. The first level of Reiki doesn't use symbols. The second and third does, to pass the energy, pass the ability on to someone else to become a Reiki practitioner. There are symbols to use.
Okay, you know, like Barbara Brennan, hands of light, emerging light. Now she can see her guide say, okay, do this, work this part of the body, and so forth. Have you gotten to that level yet where you do that, or how do you feel it yourself?
I actually, feeling it is exactly it. I feel it in my body where I need to go on the other person's body. That's correct. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask you the big question here, okay? Have you ever healed anybody?
I would say no. I'm, with my definition of healing, which is change and growth over time, it takes time. I've used Reiki in my life and have used it with friends and family for mostly change in life. So it's been something that happens over time, not necessarily what some people would think of as a miraculous healing, you know, an instantaneous sort of thing.
Or if somebody has cancer, you're not able to do that at this time, or can you at least affect it to where it could be better?
The healing is dependent upon, as I understand it, the healing is dependent upon what the person needs.
Okay. So if somebody came into your office and wanted you to heal them with Reiki, what would be the definition of that, and how would you do it?
I would say, I would ask them, what is it they're wanting to get out of using Reiki as a healing method? And then we'd go from there. If it's an emotional issue, we talk about the issue. We would try to find the understanding of how it developed, how we can move through it, how is it affecting their life. If it's a physical issue, I would try to understand the physical illness better, find out if perhaps it does have an emotional or spiritual connection. If it appears to be strictly physical, we would work on it until it changed, went away, was manageable, that sort of thing.
Okay, so they would actually get results from you trying to heal them. Now, have you ever seen any results from that? How long have you been doing this yourself?
I believe it's been 7 years now.
Okay, so I'm getting a hint here that you worked on your family and so forth, and you did get results. Can you tell me, let's say, some of the results? Now, when I use the word, have you ever healed anybody, that's a pretty big statement, you know.
Right.
It's my personal opinion, there's very few people that heal anybody anymore, but they can at least help them out with their pain and so forth. I think Barbara Brennan is a very gifted person, you know, but there's very people that have they don't seem to have that touch that they can heal like Christ or Buddha or Krishna or one of them great avatars. But what's your definition of when you first started in Reiki? What results did you get from it for other people?
Perspective. People were able to gain a greater perspective on the issue or the ability to cope with the issue or the illness. I find that's normally the greatest gift of Reiki, is being able to be in the moment of the pain or the suffering or the illness and be able to step away from it and understand it better. That way you can...
Do you feel the pain yourself when you're healing somebody else? You take on the pain, the symptomology thereof, or what happens with yourself?
Luckily with Reiki there's a fail-safe. They don't get my stuff, I don't get their stuff. When I'm in a session and I feel in my body where I need to go in their body, it can be uncomfortable, but it doesn't last long. I feel it, so I know where to go, but once I'm there, the feeling doesn't last, and I don't take it out of the session.
Okay, let's go to another question here. This will be a hard one to get, okay? Have you ever heard of a Reiki master actually curing a disease? If somebody had cancer, tuberculosis, or anything like that, or brain rot, worms in the brain, whatever, okay? Have you ever heard of anybody healing anybody through Reiki that had a deteriorative disease?
Not any of the Reiki practitioners that I've known personally.
Okay. I appreciate your honesty. Okay. there seem to be a lot of healers, but they don't seem to be healing anybody, you know. But that's been my opinion. I know that like herbs and good food and like the Hunzas in the Himalaya mountains, Afghanistan, outside Afghanistan, seem to be able to heal, never get a disease, and die from old age. So they have something going there that it's more in nature, let's say. So let's say if a patient came to you and says, well, you know, I got sore muscles, or I got this and that and so forth, what would be the procedure that you would go through to try and help this person out? They're laying on a table, sitting up in a chair. What goes on there?
Person came to me telling me that they had sore muscles. I would ask them, first off, you know, has it been a long-term thing? Is it related to another type of illness that they have? I would try to find out as much about the issue and how long they've been having it, and then try to find out where they're wanting to go with it. Are they wanting complete relief? Are they wanting to use Reiki?
Massage and stuff like that too? Or?
No, I don't.
Okay, it's just Reiki, the passing of the hand. Okay.
If they want to use Reiki along with some other type of healing modality, how they're wanting to use the Reiki in the change of that particular illness, and then we would go into the session. So the session normally lasts about 45 minutes to an hour. Clothes are on. Reiki can be done hands-on or hands-off. Normally in a session it's about both. I'll do hands-on and hands-off, depending on what's needed.
Hands-on, you touch the infected area.
Right.
Okay.
Hands-off is just sort of having my hands over the area, but not actually touching the body.
So an analysis that within your career so far you have helped out the symptom and people that you've dealt with?
The symptom and the issue.
Okay. Now, I hear that word issue 3 or 4 times now. Let me ask you about the issue.
Okay.
Let's say if somebody has an issue, okay, how would it help out the issue?
Understanding.
Okay. So now, have you taken courses in psychology or read books on psychology or parapsychology or anything like that that could help the person in their lifestyle with an issue?
Yes.
Okay, then what courses have you taken in that?
Not of course. Well, you know, the basic psychology in college, which, you know, isn't much. And, and then I went on to reading about parapsychology, and I've been in and out of counseling myself for my own healing.
Okay.
So, I mean, I wouldn't assume to say that I was a counselor in any form or fashion.
You learn from, let's say, from your own ailments and help you.
Right, and my desire to change and grow and what I've done to help myself.
Okay. Now we're going to jump over to another issue, connected with Reiki on the subject of issues. Okay.
Okay.
Let's say a gal comes into yourself and she's had an abortion. How would you treat that gal? Would it be a lifestyle that she could accept, or be a lifestyle that she might have to, under the laws of, let's say, tit for tat, something that she might have to pay a penalty for, something that she might have to do service or save a child for karmically? How would you deal with that girl that comes to you? And this is just an offside question, okay? But it's still part of the healing process. Because what I find, a lot of people are going through a healing process because they're making mistakes against the Bible, against the Talmud, against the Muslim religion, and against other religions that they simply do not adhere to, and they're creating their own religion, which would be earthly. They're committing these crimes in many different directions that they seem to be going, if I can use the word direct, they seem to be going crazy. Okay? So how would you deal with that person coming in to you that has committed a crime against that unborn child?
Why? Tell me again why she's coming to me. I mean, is she coming for...
The child's alive, was breathing, and they killed it.
Right.
She's coming to you because she feels that hurt. She still has a conscience. She still can blink her eyes in the presence of death. She came to you and said, I just killed my child. What do I do? Well, how would you help her out with Reiki in that process?
We would work on grieving.
Okay.
I would think.
Okay, now being somewhat metaphysical yourself, reading your hands, it shows a mastership line there. It shows that you have apparently some guides helping you out. There's an issue of everyday life, So the word grieving has to have a substance to it to where that person then has to have a lifestyle that overcomes the grieving. Like you can't say, oh, just forgive me, God, or forgive me, Christ, and then that child's still dead, but she's forgiven, so to speak, under the Christian religion. I don't believe that, but let's say that she thinks that. How would you deal with that person that has this grieving going on? What lifestyle would you tell her to lead after this grieving? And we're just talking about one subject, abortion, okay?
Right. I would hope to help her find a course of life that she feels is right for her.
Okay. Now, she feels it's right for her. Would she follow a pattern, a lifestyle? Like we have a show going on, Prenatal Culture, and it indicates from the ancients that a gal is a co-creator. She creates a child, she takes care of her own child, she takes care of the family, she's the confidant, the friend, the healer, the wife of a husband, etc., which seems to be a lifestyle. And it seemed to be very prosperous in ancient times, like in Egypt and Atlantis and Lemuria and so forth, and they lasted for 1,000 years. We're going under less than 300 years. So we got a problem in this country that doesn't seem to be a lifestyle that's headed in any direction except down. So what would be the lifestyle that you would have this girl lead if you can answer that question?
I would say the one that she finds is best for herself.
Okay, so that would be, let's say, self-choice?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now let's go back to that study. We'll bring up some other subjects too. The gal has aborted a child, killing a living child, and they've ripped his arms off, taken the body parts, sent him out for experimentation. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. Right down here in town, here on Broadway. They actually kill kids down there. This same gal would make a decision. Do you think that the gal that would make a decision to live her own lifestyle should have the right to kill her child? The choice.
I believe that free will is an important thing. I believe that a person should have complete freedom.
Okay, let's say you go up to a stop sign that says stop, so that's a law that says don't go across this intersection or you may get hit. Do you think yourself that the same person, because we're killing 4,500 kids a day now in this country.
Okay.
I mean, literally slaughtering them and burning them and taking their eyeballs out, the whole thing.
Okay.
Sucking brains out, we're still doing it. So, do you think there should be a law against it?
I don't know, to be honest.
Well, thank you for your honesty. Yeah, that's major. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to go on to some other subjects now in Reiki, and that, let's say, for instance, somebody comes in there and they're not happy in their family life and so forth. What would be your opinion and your guidance and your knowingness that you would tell somebody how to live a life? Let's say they're a child, let's say they're a girl. Okay, they're born a little girl. How would you tell them to grow up and live a life? What would be their lifestyle, and what would be the end results from that lifestyle? That would be correct lifestyle. Do you have an answer to that? Like if somebody's a Muslim, they got a lifestyle. If somebody's a Buddhist, they got a lifestyle. The free lifestyle that you mentioned, to let's say capture that statement, would there be a lifestyle that would be conducive with evolution, so to speak?
Conducive with evolution.
Sure, like we evolve. Like, for instance, let me give you an example. And this is all part of this life force that you use in Reiki. Let's say Randolph goes to the other side. He discovers there's 7 zones on the other side. He was Abraham Lincoln's teacher, okay? And he saw that each zone had a different color, and this is the color of the chakras. So when we die, we go to one of these zones. We live a life there that's very more advanced or less advanced, depending who you are, depending on the chakra color that you go to or what you achieved. For instance, in auras, sometimes you can see a color around the aura that gives you that designation on the other side after death where you are going. For instance, a lot of people can see their own auras through different processes. Mm-hmm. So it's a purple one, they might be in the 6th section or the 5.5, 6th section, something like that. Mm-hmm. Like Barbara Brennan, from what I've discovered, she's about the 7th section, the 4th section thereof. There's 49 sections, okay? Yeah. Now, when they have avatars that have seen these sections, and they see the colors in the sections, where you'll go after you die. So you earn that right to go up that ladder, so to speak, Jacob's ladder. Okay? So in Reiki, if somebody comes in with an issue, Are you aware of their issue? Can you see auras, so to speak?
No, I cannot see auras.
Okay. I think we talked the other day, too, and you said you could see prana, the little tiny white dots in the air?
I can.
Okay, well, that's something. Now, do you have an opinion on them or on those little white dots in the air? Do you have any opinion at all? Or is just...
I didn't know what it was till you told me, so.
Okay. Now, you experience a communication from the other side. At an esoteric level or a way of life or some process that they're trying to deal with you on, so like you heard the word Missoula, to come to Missoula. Now, there has to be a reason for this, okay? What do you think the reason is?
The next step in my growth, my personal growth.
Okay. That's amazing how you use the word Missoula. Okay. Okay. So you're here to actually do Reiki. Mm-hmm. And you work here now in town yourself, and you're trying to start a business in Reiki?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what is your telephone number in case somebody wants to get a hold of you? Okay, at any time.
Okay, 728-5637.
Okay, and they can call you now. Let's say you were to give them a session. Are you available at nighttime, during the day, weekends, and when are you available?
I work nights, so okay. Daytime is better anytime before, say, 5 o'clock.
Okay.
After 10 in the morning, between there. I'm off currently Thursday, Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Wednesdays are my day. So Thursday and Friday would be days available.
Okay. Now, you say you study under somebody. Do you have a name or somebody that you respect enough to tell their name out here in western Montana?
Well, I received with Reiki, you receive attunements to be attuned to the energy. So I received my level 1 and level 2 attunements from a friend of mine when I was living in Seattle. And then
wow, okay.
My master teacher attunement I received when I was in Cincinnati by a woman named Nancy Laird.
Okay, and where is she from?
I believe she's from Cincinnati.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. And now, as you start progressing in Reiki, again, there had to be a reason why you got interested in Reiki. Now, did you hear some kind of feeling or feel a feeling or hear a voice say, do Reiki? I mean,
no,
what happened there?
I knew there had to be something more for me to help myself heal myself from my past hurts. So when I found Reiki, that clicked. It made sense. It seemed right for me.
And you did mention something, too. We haven't got this question yet, but maybe we'll pop it in now. You started Reiki because you got hurt, and it helped you. How did it help you? For self-healing or whatever?
It helps me feel empowered. It lets me know there's something I can do for myself. It helps me with perspective. It helps me be, it helps me have the strength to be in the moment of pain or be within the issue and see it and know that there's something I can do to move through it. Yeah.
When you have that issue and the heat comes out of your hand, do you charge that heat with the issue that person might have and try and heal them with the issue with the wisdom and knowledge coming through that heat? How do you do that with that person in Reiki? In other words, they're going to be healed some way, somehow. How does it happen?
The energy has a knowledge of its own. So I'm pretty much just the conduit. I'm an empty vessel. The energy flows through me. It flows to where it needs to be, whether my hand's in that position or not.
Now, do they travel to that position under your will? They just kind of like it's like a trying to find a water hose.
It's intuitive. I mean, with Reiki, you do learn certain hand positions that are close to or on the chakras.
Okay.
But also people tend to, or I should say practitioners tend to also use intuitive hand positions. So like I said, I'll feel it in my body where I need to go on their body.
Feel their location in your body so you know where to go. And then
right.
You just, so you're kind of like a neutral conduit type thing?
Right.
Okay. At that time when you're healing, is it anything like Barbara Bray, like we discussed before, where she has guys, oh, well, go here, go there, do this, do that, and this is what the problem is, and she actually hears them talking to her.
Right.
Is it something like that?
I don't receive information that clearly, personally. Yeah, I mean, I can be in a position and say, I feel grief, I feel sadness, I feel, and then I can say, is this connected to anything? Sometimes I can get, I can feel out the connection, like, it feels like it's connected to your father, or it's connected to an inner child issue, that sort of thing, sometimes, but it's not every time.
So you let the law work through you, and there's a child issue, or the case may be, then it heals itself through the life force that comes through you.
Right.
Okay. So I know there's a story told about Christ, that he would hold his hands like this, and the life force would come out of the fingertips like a torch, and he would heal somebody, or he could heal the blind, and so forth in the same process. Okay. Now, is there anything else that you yourself want to say about Reiki?
I can't imagine my life without it. I wouldn't want to have a life without it.
Okay.
I'm honored and glad to have it.
Okay, now let's kind of go back maybe a little bit to the messages from the other side.
Okay.
Who do you think they are that are talking to you?
Angels, for lack of a better word,
Okay.
guides. I have relatives that have passed on, so
Wow.
it could be any of them.
Do you ever see them or hear them or?
I don't get visuals,
Okay.
so it would either be hearing them or feeling them.
Well, no, they say, well, how you doing, Harmony? That's how it goes. I mean, do they talk to you and then like telling you how the other side is, or?
No, unfortunately, I don't.
Do you ever
It
have
also
that question,
hasn't.
well, how is it over there?
Yeah, see, again,
Okay.
it hasn't been an interest of mine yet, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, we go back to the idea that you became a Reiki Master to help yourself out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and in that process, has it worked for you?
Yes.
Okay, so you take that same knowledge that helped you out to other people and their emotional injuries or whatever the case may be, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and now at this time when you're going through this, maybe you go through an idea here. And we discussed what you do with the patient when they're, are they laying down on a table, or are they sitting up, or how does that work?
They are laying down. I have a massage table. They lay on the massage table.
Okay, now do you have an office, or is it in your home, or?
It's in my home.
Okay. Okay, and then they just come in their clothes, lay down, that kind of thing? Okay.
Right.
Now, I think we've pretty much covered every aspect that I can possibly think of in the Reiki healing process.
Mm-hmm.
But now let's go to some other simple subjects and see what you think about them, okay?
Okay.
Diet. What would you say about diet, and let's say meat eating and diet? Would that be detrimental to somebody that's trying to get healed? Let's say if they're trying to cure cancer, the cancer diet doesn't indicate that it should be eating meat. There's the toxicities and the hormones and stuff like that that are injected in meat. So, do you talk to the patient about diet?
If it needs to become part of the healing process, then yes.
Okay, but you'll be able to tell as you're going through that? Okay.
I'm sorry?
You'll be able to tell what their problem is, like, and you'll discuss that problem with them, or is that how that works?
Right.
Okay.
But I have to say that I'm not trained in nutrition, so
Okay.
any advice I would give would be
like
more
go back to nature
general.
type of nutrition or that kind of thing?
Right.
Like the Hunzas or something like that? Okay.
I would
Now,
say,
how's your diet? What kind of food do you eat to bring on these healing arts?
I try to eat golly, as well as I can.
So you don't want to tell me you're carnivorous.
No, I do. I mean, I eat meat, but I also, I try to eat a lot of vegetables. I try to have as balanced diet as I can, but more along I eat more vegetables than anything.
Okay, they have a real good health food store down here on 3rd Avenue. They're one of the biggest in the country,
good food
I think.
store, yeah.
They have a lot of organic food. Do you believe in organics? Or?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now is there anything else you want to share with the public at this time to talk anything more about Reiki or anything that would be able to help them out at this time?
If charge is an issue, I would like for them to know that I'll work with anyone on fee, trade, barter, that sort of thing.
Okay, well, that's just very generous of you. Your hand does show that you have great capabilities. It seems like you're tapping into those capabilities. Do you feel like there's a growth pattern taking place in your life? Or?
Yes.
Okay. And you're available during the day.
Yes.
And will you want to give your phone number one more time?
Yes.
Okay.
728-5637.
Okay.
And please no
And,
calls
when
after.
when would you like people to call you? Now you work at night, so that's, you know.
Right. So if you could keep it to, no calls before 10 in the morning and no calls after 7 in the evening.
Okay. Now say that one more time. It's before.
No calls before 10 in the morning and
Okay.
no calls after 7 in the evening.
Okay, so they can call you during the day because you're wide awake after going to sleep, waking up about 10, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 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 Now you have a family back in Cincinnati, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how is your family doing with you working with them on their health issues and so forth? How are they doing themselves?
With my family, it kind of comes in pieces. I haven't worked with them long-term for anything. My sister comes to me, I have a sinus problem or
Okay.
that sort of thing. So.
Well, it's a good place to start. Now, your mother, she's still working at the college? And
Actually, she's retired.
oh, my goodness, okay. Still sing?
Yes, she does.
Okay, now, in working with the family, I guess that brought you to the forefront saying that you had some gift there. Now, does that gift increase? Tell me something about that. Or does a gift actually increase with Reiki where you actually get better at healing people, so to speak?
That's a good question. I've not known other masters intimately over time.
Okay.
You can, you can go from a level 1 to level 2 to a master. There are other types of Reiki that you can take on. There are other types of, other energy healing systems to take on. But you mentioned Barbara Brennan. You can learn how to further understand healing, energy healing, and with Reiki, I don't know that you can actually expand upon a level, but you can understand healing, that type of healing work better, and increase your knowledge and say, maybe over time I will see auras, or maybe over time with my own development and talking with my guides, I'll hear them better and be able to use that more in a session.
Well, let's talk about that just for a second. Is that in hearing your guides, okay? Occasionally, they ever talk to you at all during your healing process, or you hear them say, well, go here, go there, you just feel intuitively?
Right.
Okay. When you're sleeping, do you ever get messages while you're sleeping, like in a dream state?
I have awakened with information for myself.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So you wake up and you hear it as a meaning, and then it turns into a voice understanding, audible understanding, but it's not audible when you hear it. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, do you ever experience anything before going to sleep and just before you wake up, which is called the hypnagogic state? Do you ever go into that state? It's just a little tiny space there. It's kind of like a doorway into higher levels of understanding under hypnosis. And see, in that state right there is where most avatars have received their higher form of information, called the hypnagogic state. Have you ever experienced any information coming from that state right before you wake up and then you forget it as soon as you wake up?
I can't say definitely that I have, but that sounds familiar. So yeah, I mean, I've awakened thinking, gosh, I wish I could remember what they told me.
Well, there you are. Yeah, because there's different areas of sleep state where you get different information. Okay. Well, it's been a great pleasure interviewing you tonight,
Thank
Harmony.
you.
And let's give your telephone number one more time, and
Okay.
then we'll close out with that. How's that?
Right.
Okay.
5637, after 10 in the morning, before 7 in the evening, please.
Okay, sounds good. Now Harmony also will be giving possible some readouts here coming up in the near future on some esoteric books on subjects of her own nature, possibly in Reiki if you want,
Okay.
and things like that. And we're going to try and talk her into giving a, let's say, 15-minute, let's say, a talk on what she knows about Reiki and different subject matters. I believe that she's on the edge of actually making contact with highly formed entities that can tell her things that she'll start writing them down, recording them, or whatever the case may be. And that's personally, in my experience, I believe that's where she is. So it'd be interesting to see how Harmony progresses and so forth. We've had people on the show that actually made contact right here on the show. Then also all of a sudden they'll start writing things down. And you know, I encourage Harmony, if she wants to, you know, when you're asleep, maybe you might wake up and put on a recorder, write it down, and we'll take a look at that kind of information and see how it's going. You know?
Okay.
And I believe that Harmony, according to her hand, is going to become a teacher of metaphysics. Now, that's my personal opinion. When this will take place, I can't really tell, but I know it's coming up, and roughly on her hand, it showed right around, it's right around 28 or so, you know, where things are going to start popping loose, you know. And she takes a life change and so forth and becomes like a Mother Teresa. So it'll be interesting to see how these things turn out, and so it's been a great pleasure to have a master, according to her hand, on our program tonight. Thanks, Harmony, for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Okay, cut.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Now, 4 forward, drift into the right a little. 30 seconds forward, drift. We copy you down, Eagle. The Eagle has landed.
Astronauts who land like eagles. In antiquity, they were called Anunnaki, those who from heaven to earth came. Older than the Greeks, older than the Mayas, older than the Incas, older than the Egyptians. The oldest civilization in our history. The people who bequeathed it to us are called Sumerians, after the name of their land, Sumer, in the Great Plain between the Euphrates and Tigris rivers, today's Iraq. This clay tablet is the print of a seal about 4,500 years old. It depicts the scene of the god Enlil granting to mankind the plough, the beginning of modern agriculture. But very interestingly, we see at the top here, as the background of the cylinder seal, a depiction of the complete solar system, with the sun in the center, and all of the planets we know of in their correct order, with their correct sizes. Plus, one more planet, which is still unknown to modern science, but is being actively researched for, because it does exist, as astronomers now concur with ancient knowledge. In August 1977, the American space probe Voyager 2 left Cape Canaveral on a journey that would eventually take it, several years later, to the vicinity of our solar system's outermost planets. What Voyager discovered once it arrived there fully corroborates ancient knowledge.
For the first time, man is actually seeing Uranus. And it is exactly as the Sumerians have described it 6,000 years ago. Yes, no doubt. Though they had no telescopes, the Sumerians did describe Uranus as Mash Sig, meaning bright greenish. The Sumerians called Uranus planet which is the twin of Neptune, that is. Were they right? Now we can confirm the Sumerian description of Neptune as a blue-green planet. Obviously, the Sumerians must have known.
Sumerians were particularly particularly at home with astronomy, is evidenced by the fact that they had known, named, and listed all of the planets we know today, including those we ourselves rediscovered only in the past couple of centuries.
Members. That ancient knowledge included the planets Uranus and Neptune, supposedly unknown until discovered in 1781 and 1846, and even Pluto, not discovered until 1930. But most surprising was the inclusion of one more large planet as the 12th member of our solar system. The story of this planet, as told by the Sumerians on their 7 tablets of creation, begins 4 billion years ago, when our solar system was much younger and our own planet Earth did not yet exist.
Out of deep space, there appeared an intruder called Nibiru. Drawn into the center of our solar system, passing by Neptune and Uranus and Saturn and Jupiter, it faced an older planet called Tiamat. When Nibiru, traveling clockwise, came close to Tiamat, which was traveling counterclockwise, its satellites struck Tiamat and cracked it. In a series of collisions, one half of Tiamat was smashed completely into bits and pieces. It became the comet, and became what the Bible and the Sumerian epic called the firmament, what we call the asteroid belt. The other half, what we now call Earth, was thrust into a new orbital position. It carried along Tiamat's main satellite, which became our moon.
Missing crust, half of it missing, sunk down and lies some 250 miles below the Earth's surface.
The most obvious place for the missing crust, where planet Earth was wounded, is the Pacific Ocean, now 7 miles deep. How deep was it 200 million years ago? How large was the wound 500 million years ago? 1 billion years ago? 4 billion years ago? What caused the wound? Nibiru itself was caught into a permanent clockwise orbit around our sun, returning to our neighborhood once in every 3,600 years, and forever becoming the 10th planet of our solar system.
This tale of creation echoed through all the ancient cultures, becoming part of the scientific knowledge that we find in the Old Testament, in the creation story of Genesis.
Modern astronomy and recent discoveries corroborate this millennia-old tale.
They're everywhere, as ice on the surface and as water below the surface.
There was water on Io, the moon of Jupiter, and on Jupiter's moon Europa, on Saturn's moon Enceladus, and its moon Tethys, and in the magnificent rings of Saturn. Modern science has confirmed the ancient assertion to the full. There indeed have also been waters above the firmament.
Waters below the firmament. Data obtained by unmanned spacecraft in the 1970s, and again in 1990 and 1991, reveal that Venus may have had seas, lakes, and rivers in the past. Even Mercury, so close to the Sun, had an icy past, and still has water ice at its poles. When the Italian astronomer Schiaparelli announced last century that he had seen canals on Mars, he was disbelieved. So was the American astronomer Lowell in 1916. But the unmanned spacecraft sent to Mars by NASA found evidence of ample water in that planet's past.
We are forced to no other conclusion but that we are seeing the effects of water on Mars. Mars once had enough water to form a layer several meters deep over the whole surface of the planet. So, what had started out as a dry and barren planet has emerged in the past decade as a planet where water was once abundant. Mars has joined Venus and Earth in corroborating the Sumerian concept of water below the firmament.
Museum was laboriously putting together jigsaw-like pieces of the Babylonian tablets found at Nineveh. One night, Smith came across a large fragment with only one side legible. He was stunned to read the story of a man who built an ark to escape a devastating flood, who brought on board animals of all types, who sent out birds to see if the waters had receded. Smith had stumbled across one chapter of a much longer tale, the Epic of Gilgamesh, inscribed in clay no later than the 17th century B.C. He announced his discovery on December 3, 1872, at a meeting of the Society of Biblical Archaeology in London.
On reading this and deciphering this, the effect on both the individual who read it and the audience who received the reports was astounding, because here, for the first time, was practically verbatim written confirmation that the stories contained in the Bible had a currency outside the Bible.
The Epic of Gilgamesh was not the only Mesopotamian flood myth to be uncovered by archaeologists. A second story, the Sumerian, dates to about 1800 B.C. A third, the Atrahasis Epic, was etched in clay around 1700 B.C., but is actually much, much older. Both of these narratives tell of the world becoming so overpopulated, of human beings becoming so noisy that the gods are unable to sleep. In order to stop the noise, mankind must be destroyed.
If you read the story as you read it, passages in Gilgamesh, and you didn't tell people where they come from, you'd say, you know, this is from the Bible. It sounds almost the same. It's very, very striking.
In many ways, these Mesopotamian stories are very closely related to the biblical, not only in the general notion of a flood, but in some of the particular details. There's a Noah figure. He gathers his family and goes onto an ark. He's on the ark for a period of time while the rest of the world, the human world, drowns. The ark comes to rest on a mountain.
And there are some pretty startling points of comparison between the two, which suggest that they must have commonalities that are not accidental but share either dependency or a third tradition that may have informed both.
The similarities are so close in terms of the general structure, the episodic structure, the fact that, for example, the birds are sent out to look for land. This occurs in both the biblical narrative and the Neophon narrative. It's impossible for me to conceive of a situation in which these two stories arose independently.
Now this raises a couple of additional questions. Who had it first, Mesopotamia or the biblical world?
What's very clear about these stories from Mesopotamia, especially Atrahasis, is that they can be dated very accurately, or relatively accurately, at least in a couple of their versions, to the early 2nd millennium BC. So there's very little doubt that the Mesopotamian literary tradition, which includes these flood narratives, is much older than the Hebrew one.
Here we have the smoking gun. Here we have discovered, with the Mesopotamian material, a story which we now know is far, far older than the biblical version.
Flood stories hundreds, if not thousands of years older than the Bible? How is this possible?
So there is no doubt that these stories are moving around in actual tangible tablets. And so no doubt these Canaanite peoples and later the Israelite peoples were aware of the stories as good stories, as stories that dealt with fundamental problems.
The other possibility for Genesis is that this was a story that came into the Genesis traditions during the exile, when the Jews were living in Babylonia, and there were certainly people among them who were very familiar with Neophon culture.
The existence of not one, but 4 flood myths in Mesopotamia caused many experts to believe that there must have been a real flood on which the stories were based. But was there a mighty deluge? And can science prove it?
These beings are the ones recorded to have taught all the Sumerians their knowledge about the solar system, the distance between the planets, mathematics, science, medicine. Everything that we still have today was taught by the Anunnaki to the Sumerians almost 6,000 years ago, the first culture on Earth. The Sumerian culture was aware of many amazing things having to do with science and even astronomy. They described a solar system that had 12 planets and were accurately able to depict all of the planets that we know of, including the outer planets, the distance, the color of these planets. But they describe a solar system with 12 members. We can now test that information because when NASA sent the outer probes like Voyager and Galileo, it completely matched the Sumerian descriptions of evidence of outer planets from 6,000 years ago. The search for Planet X has actually been going on by NASA using modern science as well. The same descriptions that the Sumerians gave for a 12th planet, NASA themselves are actually seeking another planet within our solar system, and it matches the Sumerian information from 6,000 years ago. This sacred number 12 has been passed down through the Sumerian culture to other preceding cultures. Modern-day Iraq, 6,000 years ago, was known as Sumeria, Babylon, Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. Many of the stories that we have in the ancient versions of the Bible can be transgressed to earlier versions. For instance, the Hebrew version of the Bible can be transgressed to the first version by the Sumerians, which we still have intact. And this is a stone artifact still held in Iraq, 6,000 years old. And here they are displaying angels from the first culture on Earth, which they didn't call angels. They explained them to be called the Anunnaki, those who from heaven come to Earth. The Sumerians clearly described their gods as living gods, and they had the technology which enabled them to have the power of flight. Looks like he's almost wearing a wristwatch here. The Sumerian descriptions of the Anunnaki were written in stone almost 6,000 years ago. They predate any English version of the Bible describing angels by at least 4,000 years. So here we can see another version of the winged disc speaking to a Sumerian king. The Sumerians described the Anunnaki, those who from heaven come to earth, as their living gods. They actually lived among their living gods. All around the world, every culture has references from beings that came from heaven. My name is Jason Martell. I started my research about 9 years ago. There's a lot of evidence nowadays where modern science can confirm what we've been told by the ancients. These things that we thought were mythology might actually have some factual basis. Mel has really been quite invaluable with her translations. I sent over a few artifacts that I had just received from the British Museum, and what she found in there was quite amazing. NASA has not been telling us the real information. Mel just sent this one over to me after she translated the cuneiform writing, and it clearly displays information that talks about the 12 planets in our solar system. It really does show some interesting symbology. When we look at this artifact here, the winged disc is a clear example of what the Sumerians talked about by the symbology of the Anunnaki. This is the winged disc, the symbol for Nibiru. Nibiru is the planet that the Anunnaki come from. Those are the Sumerian gods, which we call those who from heaven come to earth. Here we have an Anunnaki and a Sumerian, but this cuneiform writing is telling a very interesting story. Mel's translations clearly show Planet X does exist.